Listen strong. It's Superhuman Radio.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. This is Casual Friday with Alisa, Profumo, and myself in the studio. And what are we talking about next? This is really important. Actually, before we talk about this, I want to say something.
Okay, we're going to talk about the FDA and Monsanto and Obama.
Yeah, President Obama. And you know what? The reason I want to say this is because we are now invoking
Politics.
President Obama into this discussion, and it's important that we say this up front. I have no political agenda at all. My only political agenda, and that's not true. I do have a political agenda. My political agenda is fairness to the people. It really is. That's all. I don't care. Because the truth of the matter is I haven't seen a politician yet, except maybe Ron Paul, that I really think is worth their salt. Because they all do the same thing. I don't trust Mitt Romney, to be honest with you. I know he's the Republican go-to guy. But something about it I just don't trust. I mean, I think all politicians at one point in time or another lose the reason they became politicians and become co-opted because of the constant vying for their vote by commercial interests like companies like Monsanto and so on.
We did a story on a Casual Friday several months back about how many, under the Obama administration, how many GMO foods have been approved. And it's like up to how many, 19 or 20?
I want to say it was either 18 or 20 have been approved under his administration, and in the previous 20 years, only 8 had been approved.
Only 8 had been approved.
So one could say, well, because GMO really wasn't prevalent back then, but it's much more prevalent during his administration. I don't buy that because it was prevalent during the past 3 administrations as well.
Yes.
But he clearly embraces genetically modified foods. There's no doubt about it.
Well, he appointed Tom Vilsack in 2008 as Secretary of Agriculture. And he's got ties. He's a shill for the agribusiness.
Well, wasn't he the one that you said that during his political office holding, he was using Monsanto's private jets to fly places?
Yes.
So that's inappropriate in my opinion.
It's very inappropriate.
Okay, but what was the quote? I was shocked by this. What was it that is it Vilsack?
Vilsack. It's Tom Vilsack. Vilsack. Google him.
What was it that he said about, and this goes in line with that thing that I said, we want to get the government out of our pantry, right?
Okay, here, this was reported by CNN News. This is really important. U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack told members of the National Restaurant Association on Monday that Americans need to adjust their tastes so they like the kind of food the government believes they should eat. And we have to make sure that what we do is create the appropriate transition. So what he is saying is that we should like what the government tells us to eat.
Now think about this. What does the government tell us to eat? The government doesn't tell us to eat what's healthy. They tell us to eat what they subsidize. Because think about it. Imagine if you were in an industry, right?
Right.
Where you could tell people that buying your product was the right thing to do and not your competitor's product. Imagine if you were in an industry where you had such strong control that you could dictate what people bought and you told them that buying your product was the best thing to do. That would be considered unfair and really almost monopolistic.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's what the government is doing. The government is subsidizing corn. They're subsidizing soy. They're subsidizing all these different crops. Then they create the My Plate and the food pyramid, and they get talking heads on the media to tell people these are the things you should eat. You should eat whole grains. You should eat soy. You should eat Why? It's in their financial best interest that you eat these crops because they get their investment back.
And here the U.S. Agriculture Secretary is saying that we should eat what they tell us to eat.
Yes. And if
where do I live? Do I live in the United States?
No. This is the new democracy here. It sounds very similar to socialism.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, and I hate to say socialism because as soon as you say that, then there are people like, oh, you're a zealot. But look, in socialist societies, they make people do what they want them to do, what's in the best interest of the government.
And here, this man is riding around in Monsanto's jet.
Well, it gets worse.
Okay, so Obama appointed Monsanto's vice president as senior advisor to the commissioner at the FDA. It's so incestuous.
Why is anyone from private companies involved in the oversight of those private companies? You have to ask yourself this question. I don't care if you love Obama, you don't love Obama, just straight from a governmental standpoint. Why would you allow the crack dealers to influence the laws that govern crack cocaine sales?
Michael Taylor is the guy's name. Michael Taylor was just appointed senior advisor to the commissioner of the FDA. This is the same man that was in charge of FDA policy when GMOs were allowed into the U.S. food supply without undergoing a single test to determine their safety. He had been Monsanto's attorney before becoming policy chief at the FDA, and he became Monsanto's vice president and chief lobbyist. Now, this is the man that has now been appointed commissioner of the FDA.
This is scary, folks. If you don't think this is scary, then you don't care about your life or your children's lives.
I'm sorry, senior advisor to the commissioner of the FDA.
Still, senior advisor. Now, so the FDA will say, well, we don't do what he says, but of course you do. You know, when you make friends with somebody, they can influence how you handle things. These are just people. These aren't special people who are beyond corruption or beyond reproach. These are just people. So you don't think that the FDA is going to take advice from the guy who's giving them advice from Monsanto? And who's he going to give advice about? He's going to give advice that's going to give Monsanto the edge, not their competitors. He's not going to say, hey, Cargill deserves this. He can say, no, help us. We're Monsanto.
Do you want to play that clip that we have?
This is really important. Those of you who remember
in 2007
anything that is ever said during a political campaign, the promises that politicians make during political campaigns, we really need to tape them and play them back over and over again. Because politicians make hollow claims and hollow promises to get your vote, and then they hope that you forgot why you voted for them. Well, during the campaign of change, President Obama knew that there were those of us out there who felt that genetically modified foods were at least something to be cautious about. So we wanted to be able to identify them in stores so we could decide whether or not to eat them, right?
Right.
And so what did he promise us back then? Hey, let's listen. Let's listen.
A priority.
Here's what I'll do as president. I'll immediately implement country of origin labeling because Americans should know where their food comes from. We'll let folks know whether their food has been genetically modified because Americans should know what they're buying. We'll let folks know whether their food has been genetically modified because Americans should know what they're buying.
We agree.
Now, he said that clearly is about labeling genetically modified foods. He said he wants to let Americans know if foods are genetically modified because Americans should know what they're buying. But at the same time, after he said that, we've had no movement on the labeling of genetically modified foods. In fact, California is the only state that's actually fighting for it on an independent basis right now. And on top of that, he's approved more genetically modified foods, and he's taken the company that is pioneering GMO and put them in touch of the organization that provides oversight to the agricultural industry. He's literally handing over the agricultural industry and its oversight to Monsanto. Now, ask yourself, why is he doing it? Well, I'll ask you, Alisa. Why do you think he's doing this? Truthfully, do you think it's because he really believes that GMO's okay and he thinks he's smarter than us?
No, I think he's doing it because he gets so much money from biotechnology companies.
Bingo. And he's a sitting president. Sitting presidents have the hardest time running for office because they're running the country at the same time.
Doesn't it seem like things are starting to, it just seems like to me it's just getting worse.
Really, really fast.
Yes.
Click, 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 click. Things are really starting to pile up now. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't believe that genetically modified foods are dangerous, then go ahead and eat them. And for those of us who think that they're dangerous, I don't want to eat them. But we should be able to tell the difference.
Right.
You can go into a store and tell that it's chocolate ice cream and not vanilla ice cream that you're eating, right? It's not a grab bag. Hey, let me get some ice cream. I wonder what it'll be this time. Then why shouldn't you be able to tell that it's genetically modified or not? You should.
You should be able to.
Right.